many are existing, and how many are already experienced in the subject of Rera and who are already deliberating, discussing, and also handling Rera. You can just mention in chat so that you also be interacting with me in terms of the session. Second, Mr. Suhail and Mr. Karthik, they also would be joining, and they are the subject matter of expert in Rera. Mr. Suhail Ahmad is an advocate. He can explain about agreement of sale. And also we have with us engineer Karthik from Vijayawada. He would be explaining more about technical aspect in terms of the plan sanction, NOCs, agreement of sale in related to that, and also maybe area statement. Is being the engineer, he will explain about that also in terms of the cost of the development of the project. And if you have any question in between on this, you can free to chat, free to put in the chat box. We'll address that in between. Having said, let me start with the presentation on today's topic on Rera. Hope the screen is visible. Shweta, you should assist me.
Yes, sir. Yes,
Okay,
sir. Screen is visible.
Okay, thank you. As Shweta mentioned already, the program is in association with NAREDCO and also OPAZA. OPAZA is a application which assists the real estate developers in terms of managing their entire business. And NAREDCO is a National Real Estate Development Council, which is the industry, which is the body of all the stakeholders related to the real estate. And chief patron of the NAREDCO National is the Housing Minister himself. So this program is in association with these two organizations, and I'm a financial consultant, and I have been invited to talk on the subject on Rera. And this month I'll be touching upon some of the latest development which is happening in terms of Rera, and also agreement of sale, even though which is notified earlier. In recent days, it has gained its importance, and also authorities insisting in terms of follow the clauses specifically mentioned in agreement of sale. And I'll touch upon the compliances under Rera and also year-end compliance of 2022, because we are nearing March. Whatever you're going to report in the month of March 2022 to Rera, that would be a document and an evidence which makes the promoter to report the similar information, similar transaction to any other statutory agencies, which may be GST, which may be income tax, or which may be labor related compliances also, and also maybe TDS also. Having said that, the information which you going to submit in Rera plays a very important and vital role. And this is a document which is amenable to RTI, amenable under RTI, and public can view easily. Friends, we come across various notices which are issued by the different authorities. They say that they have taken from Rera itself. So I will explain in the subsequent slide when I come to the year-end compliances how much importance and why it should be looked into in a serious manner, not just a document which goes to the Rera department. As I mentioned, latest updates I'll discuss: agreement of sale, compliances, which may be a registration, quarterly updates, annual audit, modification, and GST and Rera Q&A. Friends, this is, even though Rera is there in the past 5 years, we still get to hear from various sources, sir, that project doesn't have Rera. Sir, this project doesn't have Rera. But still they are not able to sell it. Friends, as per Section 3 of Rera Act, it is mandated any promoter promoting the real estate project which is not having the occupancy certificate or a completion certificate or 100% release in terms of a plotted development as on 1/5/2017, all those projects require a registration under Rera. Still we get a question stating, sir, the project is completed in all aspects, not as on 1/5/2017. Subsequent to that, maybe they have used their own fund without marketing, without collecting money from the customers, and they have not obtained the RERA registration. Can I go to the market and can I sell without RERA? Answer is no. RERA is mandate at all point of time, whether you paid your own money or you paid borrowed money or you have collected from the customer. RERA registration is a must at all point of time. Without RERA registration, one should not promote real estate project. Definition of real estate projects, which includes the apartment, which includes the layout or a plotted development, commercial development like a shop, showrooms, those projects which are intended for sale. Out of 100 apartments, even one apartment end up with selling, RERA registration is required. Where if the apartment project or any commercial establishment, commercial project which doesn't sell, which not intend to sell and which not end up with selling either today or tomorrow, then those projects need not to register under RERA. Why I am repeating this question even after 5 years is also, we get a question now also on this subject on this topic. Half an hour before also we got a call stating that, sir, 70%, like we know in a plotted development, 40% release, 30% release, stage wise release, and sir, 70% plan already plots are released by the competent authority or planning authority, and should I go for registration with RERA? The answer is yes. So to what extent they should register with RERA? Is 30% or 100%? The answer to that is 100%, because under RERA there is requirement to register the entire project, not the part, and of which a project which doesn't require the completion certificate, those projects required for you to register under RERA. This 40% and this 30% concept is, it is not that it is completed development. Okay, as per the rules which was existing that point of time, along with the sanction plan, they have released this 40% or 30% for the purpose of sale. Otherwise, entire project required to be registered under RERA. Friends, if you are a professional like a chartered accountant, advocate, or any other profession, engineer, architect, or any other professional for matter, if you are advising to the client, please tell them, if they do not have the completion certificate as on 1/5/2017, all those projects require a registration under RERA, irrespective of whether they use their own funds, borrowed fund, whether its status is completed, status is ongoing, irrespective of that, those projects require a registration under RERA. That is the first thing which I would like to say. This is the compliance, as one of the topic of today's subject session is also compliances. This itself is a compliance. If you are a chartered accountant, if you are auditing the books of accounts of the customer or your clients, if they are into real estate, please check whether those projects are registered with RERA. You may not be advising them on RERA. However, you being the auditor, you being the chartered accountant who is attesting their certificate, attesting their books of accounts, you should know that this is the industry regulator. For a real estate, RERA is a regulator. Like a banks, RBI is a regulator. For investment, SEBI is a regulator. For like that, for regulation of real estate, RERA is there. So compulsorily for their project, RERA registration is required. And as I mentioned again, repeat again, if you may not be advising them on RERA, but as a consultant, as a chartered accountant, you should look at their financials and understand whether they are registered with RERA. If not, you should know why it is not registered and how it is exempted from the registration. Because as a chartered accountant, I have to report on contingent liability also, the future liability also, because if they're not registered with RERA and if they market it, there is a certainty of levying a penalty, which is nothing but a liability which unforeseen at this point of time. So CA can also mention in their either to advise to the customer client, your project require a RERA registration, please get the registration done. Also, this is a one more thing, section 3(1), like when you file for an application, generally authority expect expect the professional to issue few certificate. One is the engineer certificate, second is architect certificate, third is CA certificate. CA certificate is a simple. Of course, all the three certificates are simple. Those certificate talks about estimated cost of the project. Why they need to know estimated of the cost of the project is as per section 4.2 LD, which require the promoter to withdraw the money based on the percentage of completion of the project. For that, they should know what is the estimated cost of the project. And those estimated of the project is generally given by the promoter himself. However, authority wanted to know one layer extra to get it certified by the professionals. So that is the reason architect, engineer, and a chartered accountant certify this. Along with that, as per section 4 of the Act, few documents required to be furnished provided by the authority, by the promoter. One of such document is called financial statement. You know that what are financial statements? Profit and loss account, the balance sheet or a statement of affairs, income tax returns or a cash flow statement, maybe notes to accounts and director reports. These are all combined as the financial statements. We come across when we receive the financial statements for filing an application, already promoter would have collected some money from the project customers before going for a Rera registration. And if you are advising any of your customers, any of your clients for the purpose of Rera, please go through their financial statements, because promoter may or may not disclose that he has collected advance from the customer. Generally, what we say that we ask a question, sir, have you sold any apartment, any plot in the project? General answer will be no. The reason, if you think that sales means registration for him or agreement for sale, generally it is a common practice in this industry. They collect money towards the future agreement itself. So please look at the financial statements, any money which has collected. If collected, then it is a section 3.1 violation, penalty would be applicable. See to it that how you can mitigate that penalty, or you can advise how to do that. In case if you require a refund of that money to the customer, and modify the financial statement as on date and file an application, because once it goes into the public domain, so you cannot retrieve back. So that is the reason. Please ensure that you verify these documents which are filed under Rera before submission. And we also come across this sales or revenue which is reflected in the certificates. And certificates say, even some of the certificates says that money has been collected from the customer. And if you see the form which you submit for the purpose of certificate by a chartered accountant, because chartered accountant gives a certificate based on the books of accounts. If the books of accounts says that money collected from the allottees or the customer of ABC project for which he is issuing the certificate, generally he mentioned that certification, in the certificate he mentioned money collected from the allottees or the customer. If that goes to the authority, and penalty is a must, because section 3.1 violation. And UD number, which is mandatory as per institute regulation. Next, and this is a one more thing, a CA who is in industry, who is in employment, is not supposed to issue this certificate. A chartered accountant which holding certificate of practice is only eligible to issue the certificates. And of course, in the certificate, if you see that, like, there is a certificate whether a promoter is marketed or not. Generally, as a chartered accountant, I may not be knowing that whether it's marketed or not. Maybe I can say whether money is collected or not, marketed or not. You have to take a call whether you will exercise additional efforts, additional steps to verify whether it's marketed or not, or you wanted to give a disclaimer stating that we are issuing this certificate based on the books of accounts of the promoter, and whether the promoter has marketed or not is not in our purview, or you can mention that based on the expert opinion we are issuing the certificates. This is a very important for any of you who are if you are a promoter who collect the certificate from the chartered accountant, or if you are a chartered accountant issuing a certificate to any of the project. Next, this is a second important because in recent days we are hearing from various promoters, consultants, even the authority also, money is not being deposited into the project designated bank account. Friends, I'll just touch upon a few minutes on that. You all know that there is a Rera designated bank account for each project. Each project is a designated for one project. That account should be used only for that project. And 70% of the money, whatever you collect, should go into that project. So money can be having deposited, which can be withdrawn using the professional certificate, and how much you can withdraw based on the professional certificate. Recently, Maharashtra Rera has issued a circular and notification stating that bankers should collect the professional certificate before withdrawal, before allowing to withdraw the money from the project bank account. Of course, which was there in the other state like a UP or a Madhya Pradesh. In southern states, this is the southern state, or maybe this region, Maharashtra is the first state to allow this without RERA, without professional certificate. They're not issuing, they're not allowing to register the, not allowing to withdraw the money from the project. One more important note under this certificate is, and this has to be collected for each withdrawal. That means to say that, like, if the limit is lapse, or limit is withdrawal limit is crossed, then you have to obtain the multiple certificate. All these certificates should go for a quarterly update and quarterly filing. And while issuing a certificate, if you are a chartered accountant, please ensure money collected from the allottees has been deposited into this project bank account. How much? Minimum 70%. How do you ensure? Certainly, you should look at the books of accounts, collect the bank account statement, look at the Rera website. In Rera website of most of the states mention the which is the project designated bank account. To that account, account only the money should be deposited. If not deposited, please give a qualification. Do not shy away from giving the qualification, because otherwise you as a professional is also responsible in terms of not issuing a certificate in accordance with the law. So this is what I mentioned in the previous slide. Again on the same thing. Change in the project bank account. Suhail is here. Suhail, yes. Just explain requirement of change of bank account, and also why it is mandated, and if at all, if it is not done it, what would be the implication, and any other practical experience to the audience here.
Yes. Good evening, everyone. Sorry, I joined in a little late. So under section 4.2 LD, we give the details of the designated project bank account. So as Mr. Vinay was explaining, we give a separate bank account for each project. It's not that the same project can be used for the same bank account can be used for multiple projects. So it will be the same, it will be different account for each project, and each state, most of the states rather, have issued directions in the manner as to how these accounts should be opened. In Karnataka, we have bank account directions 2020, which clearly stipulate how these accounts have to be opened, in what name they have to be opened, what will be the nomenclature of these accounts. So only if the accounts are opened in that manner does the authority accept the bank account to be the bank account for that particular project. So what happens in many of the cases, we have seen that whenever subsequent to obtaining the registration of a project, a promoter wants to obtain project finance, or there is some kind of financial arrangement between the promoter and his banker. Generally, to have some control over the project, the banks insist on the account being changed, and to be changed into an escrow mechanism also. So both of these are not permitted under the Act. Neither an escrow mechanism can be created where any banker has total control over the money that is deposited into a designated bank account. And two, the bank account cannot be changed arbitrarily, that is without taking prior permission or prior approval of the authority. So most of the authorities have, of course, in Karnataka also, there is a module for seeking change of project bank account by giving the details and finding the necessary documents as per the module and as per the requirement on the web portal of the Karnataka Rera. So only once a promoter obtains the permission from you can open the bank account and give the details, and you will also have to assign the reason why you want to change. And there are certain, in fact, an NOC from the previous bank also has to be given, and you also have to file an affidavit saying that you are not seeking to change the bank account to avoid something. So there have been cases where there are certain attachments or there are certain statutory non-compliances on the part of the promoter because of which they cannot operate the account. So an affidavit has to be given stating that there have been no violations, and then it is not because of any of these issues that we are seeking to change the bank account. So once an application is filed, the application is processed, and based on the documents that are filed, once the authority approves the change of bank account, the bank account to which the change is obtained will start reflecting in the web portal of the authority, and only then can the funds be deposited into that account to which the change is sought. So in terms of the application process, yes, it's an online application. The fees payable in Karnataka is 10,000 for change of bank account. The documents and certificates as sought for or as notified by the authority have to be all filed, including an NOC from the previous bank account, previous banker. That is, if let's say that you are changing from HDFC to ICICI, the HDFC bank in which the previous account was there has to issue an NOC, and then based on which you can then file the application. And there are affidavits, as I said earlier, that stating that swearing to the fact that it is not to avoid something that you are changing the bank account, but to facilitate something else. So this is regarding the change of bank account. We have seen many a times that the promoters have gone ahead either due to ignorance or not knowing the fact that the bank accounts have been changed, or at the time of filing the application, they have just given some bank account. Of course, that is not possible now, because if it's a new project, then the account has to be opened in the name of the project promoter, and you have to add Rera designated bank account to the nomenclature. So of course that is not possible now. But if at all, in the past, many a times we have seen that some account number is given and something else is used all along, and then finally when CA certificates are issued or any change request is made, any other change request is made, that's when the authority realizes, based on the certificates issued by a chartered accountant, that what account was given as the project designated bank account is not the actual bank account into which the 70% money has been deposited. And that's when the question is asked as to how you've gone ahead and deposited. That's when the promoters realize that, oh, we should not have done this. So keep it in your mind that any details that are given while obtaining registration, if any change has to be made, similarly also the change in modification of plan and change of inventory, anything that has to be done, there is a formal process of seeking approval of the authority. You should make sure that such approvals are taken in whenever there is a change to be made in the registration details. Vinay, the next one. So yes, this is the process. Like I said, it's an online application. Then there is a verification by the authority, and upon verification, if there are any queries that are raised, you will comply with all those queries. And in Karnataka, most of the cases there is a hearing, or very few cases that I think most of the cases, whenever there is a project bank account, there is a hearing. The authority will post the matter for hearing, and here as to why there is a change of bank account. Vinay, I'm not sure whether all all applications are heard. Maybe only some of them are heard. Can you just clarify that?
It from time to time there is a changes. In case there is a non-compliances where authority wanted to levy some penalty, if there is a clear follow-up of the
Violation.
section 42 LD for all the days, all the time till registration, till filing of this bank account, there may not be hearing, it may be approved. However, if there is some non-compliances, maybe they will be here with a warning, and also they'll be issuing the penalty orders. Yeah.
Okay. So once the hearing is completed, that is when you get the approval, and only thereafter can you deposit the money into the new bank account. So while filing the application, you will also produce the CA certificates certifying that the withdrawal of money has been in proportion to the percentage of completion, which Mr. Vinay was earlier mentioning that for every withdrawal you need to have a certificate. Of course, if the money deposit is less than the work already completed, so you may only need one certificate till you reach that stage of money collection, which is less than the work completed. So let's say that you have completed 40% work and only collected 10%. So until you cover the gap of the remaining 30%, you can use the same certificate. But if it's the other way around, then you may have to obtain multiple certificates. So project completion date, expiry, and extension. So you all know that now for obtaining registration of a project, the application is to be filed as required under the Act and the rules. Under the Act, yes, Vinay.
Please add this recent notice issued by the authority along with this slide itself.
I'll do that. So so for grant of registration, an application is contemplated, the method of filing an application is contemplated under section 4. And under section 4(2)LC, a promoter can set the end date of the project. So which means that there has to be a start date and there has to be an end date. So section 4(2)LC is the provision under which a promoter can set the end date, and that end date is at the choice of the promoter. That is, the promoter decides based on the previous experience and the project that is being developed, what is the extent of the project, how much time it's going to take. Based on the promoter's own experience, the promoter sets the end date. So what happens if the end date when the end date is approaching and still the promoter foresees that the project cannot be completed? So let's assume that a project start date has been given as 1/1/2018 and the end date is 31/3/2022, which is this month. Or let's say that it is March, April, May, June. Let's say that it is 30th June 2022. So 3 months from now, the end date is coming close, and the project registration that is granted will lapse after 30/6/2022. So when that is the case, and if a promoter foresees that the development work cannot be completed, so for us to say the development work, you have to understand what is the definition of development work, which is under section 2. So development work as defined under the Act includes both the internal as well as the external development work. Now, internal development works is also separately defined as well as the external development work. So when you take all of this, essentially whatever is part of the plan sanction, whatever is part of the offering that is made to the allottees by way of a brochure or an advertisement. Ms. Meghna, can you please pause yourself? So I was saying that, okay, so whatever you have promised, whatever a promoter has promised by way of an advertisement, be it a brochure or anything else, and whatever is defined in the Act, and whatever the sanction that has been taken by the promoter. So when everything is completed, when 100% completion is there, and now under Rera, the definition of an occupancy certificate includes provision for water, sanitation, and electricity. So when is the project deemed to be completed is when the internal development works are completed, external development works are completed, the occupancy certificate is obtained, and which comes with water, sanitation, and electricity, and whatever is promised. Let's say that internal, external development works as per the plan sanction or something else. In the brochure, there is something else that is promised. Let's say that a clubhouse is promised in case of a residential project, or some other additional feature that is promised in a brochure or in the advertisement or in the agreement for sale, or whatever document. If you put all of them together, you will come to you will know that what all has been promised. So if everything is completed, that is when it is deemed that the project is completed. So assuming that an end date has been set and all these things would be completed, then an application for extension of registration can be filed, which has to be filed 3 months prior to the end date. So like I said, if the project has registration which is valid up to 36/2022, so which means that the application would have to be filed on 1st of April 2022. So you have to file it 3 months prior to. Of course, under the Act, under section 6, which deals with the extension of registration, contemplates grant of any extension only due to force majeure and for nothing else, except for some of the states which have included, in addition to the force majeure, which are natural events, which do not include court orders or orders or by any statutory authority. Except for Telangana, no other state has given any exemption. However, most of the authorities, because if extension is not granted, then consequences under section 7 and 8 have to follow, which means that revocation of registration, or how to deal with the lapsed projects, which is also contemplated under section, all those things have to follow. So most of the authorities, even if it is not a force majeure event because of which the delay has happened at the moment, because many of these projects are ongoing projects, and most of the authorities, because if extension is not granted, then automatically it will have to be dealt with as a lapsed project, or the registration granted has to be revoked, because that will become an extreme situation. So most of the authorities are extending or granting extensions for the registrations granted for these projects, even if the reason is not a force majeure event. So the fees, the application process in most of the states is an online process, except for Tamil Nadu. I think Tamil Nadu has a manual application. 50% of the fees has to be paid, and only in case the promoter is saying relies on the fact that it is due to a force majeure event, that is an act of God, because of which the development works in the project have been delayed. Let's say that a project is directly affected due to a flood or a landslide or anything that has happened, so then the fees need not be paid. Otherwise, 50% of the fees that is originally paid will have to be paid. The documents, as per the requirement, as per the module that is notified by the authority, there is a list of documents that has to be furnished. All the certificates, the professional certificates, the CA, architect, and engineer certificates have to be furnished. The maximum extension that is provided is only for 1 year, and in Karnataka, it is not an automatic process. That is, there is a hearing for most of the extensions that are granted, or almost all of them, and there is either an approval or rejection. The authority considers, in Karnataka at least, it considers a lot of things. In some of the other states, it's quite easy to obtain and extend an extension. Like in the case of Andhra Pradesh, as I know, mere payment of fees and application is sufficient. The automatic approval is given automatically. Even in Tamil Nadu, the extension is quite an easy process. However, a condition stipulated that the extension granted will not affect the rights of the allottees. So even if the the condition that the rights of the allottees are which shall not be affected, even if that is not specifically stated in the extension, in the certificate which is granted after extension. You have to keep in mind one thing, that the allottees' rights continue to be the same as that in the agreements that have been entered into, merely by way of an extension being granted under the Act for the registration. This is an extension only for the registration that is granted. So the registration remains valid for another 1 year. Obligations as in respect of the allottees continue to be as per the agreement for sale. So if the project end date that is given as 36/2022, for an allottee the handover date will continue to be 36/2022. Any extension beyond that would mean that the consequences under the Act, under section 18, that is the delay and penalty, all those kick in, and the allottee will get a right to go against the promoter to seek delay compensation and penalty by way of interest. So the extension of registration is only for the project and not in respect of the time being extended in term for the allottees who have already entered into the agreements for sale, under which the hearing, the end date is already stipulated. And the authority has also enabled reporting of completion of the project, the development work of the project. So of course earlier it was a very easy process, and now that has also become a very detailed process in terms of filing of documents, providing of details and information. It's quite an extensive process. So a project which has obtained registration as of the end date either should have filed an application for extension of registration, or two, should have reported completion before the end date. If both these things have not been done, so the authority has recently issued notices to about 1,000 and odd promoters who have neither filed the application for extension of registration nor have reported completion. So there could be many reasons. One, ignorance, because of which the promoters have not filed an application for seeking extension or have reported completion. Two, maybe some of the promoters in some of the projects, as we know, they cannot report completion simply because the completion certificate or the occupancy certificate has not been obtained or cannot be obtained because of violations or because of any other reason. So now obtaining registration under Rera is only the beginning. So you end with completion. You cannot obtain registration only for the purpose of selling a project, but however, you also have to keep it in mind that you have to comply with all the requirements under the Act by way of quarterly updates, by way of Rera annual audits, by way of reporting completion. So everything has to be done. And if you are a project where you are not able to obtain the completion certificate, then it will become difficult. So make sure that there are no violations in the project. Yes, Vinay, you can take it further.
Yeah, thank you. So the recent notice which is issued by the Karnataka Rera, please ensure that you take action appropriately. As I mentioned, that this is a process which already Mr. Suhail has explained to you. File an application, pay the fees, they will verify, and there is a hearing, and they'll issue the certificate accordingly for the extension under Section 6 of the Rera Act. And also project completion, expiry, and the extension. This is what already Mr. Suhail has explained in terms of the documents which is required for allowing the extension to happen. In case the authority feels that the time and the efforts required is beyond what is permitted under the Act, then they may take under Section 8 of the Rera Act, invoke the Section 7 and 8, and issue the orders accordingly. And also one of the compliances, one of the major compliances we always used to see is the quarterly updates under Rera. I'm sure that most of you are aware the quarterly updates by the time, and section 50, section 11 and rule 15 of the act mandates the quarterly updates. And these quarterly updates, we require to provide the information in related to the financial progress, financial collection, building progress and development progress, and various licenses and renewals NOCs which are obtained in the project from time to time. And these quarterly updates are mandatory, and I'm sure that most of you are filing in time. Generally, the due date of this under act and the rules, under the rules, is 15th day of subsequent to the end of the quarter. Of course, Andhra Pradesh has 7, but by various notifications from time to time, they also extend the due date for filing the quarterly update. And especially this March quarter is a very critical, very crucial to file this quarterly update. This March quarter is the basis for the drafting the annual accounts of the project or the entity itself, because in the quarterly update, the promoter gives what is the sold unit, what is the unsold unit, what is the percentage of completion of the project, what is the money collected from the each allotee. And this will make a ground, this will be a basis for any of the statutory, other statutory agencies like a GST or the income tax go beyond and look at these documents and check whether what you declared in the income tax, what you declared in the GST tallies with this quarterly Q4, because this is the year end. And you might declare something earlier in the December or September, but this being the quarter end of March. So please ensure that these numbers are carefully considered by taking appropriate approval from your management. Your management should not come back and say that you should not have been filed this quarterly update without our permission, because which has an impact on the financial statement of the organization. Please take a prior approval from the management. It may be a partners, directors, or a proprietors, wherever required, and for you to file this quarterly update. And do not file something without taking the approval, without thinking that what is that, how it is going to impact your financial statement. If required, talk to your chartered accountants. Speak to them, sir, is that okay to file this quarter? He will also guide you and as well as your promoter of the project for the what to be declared, how to be declared. And finally, if the project, if the company or a project received or borrowed money for the purpose of construction finance, how to report is also very important, which has a direct impact on your borrowing capacity also. So as I mentioned, this is the certificate, you will have it for the quarterly updates, and which may be a physical progress of the project and also financial collections and the amount incurred towards the project. And you all know that this 3/2019 in terms of the GST, the percentage of GST depends on the option or the scheme you opted, like a 5% or a 12% old scheme. But percentage of completion is very important for one to consider what should be the percentage of completion. And also if you are following with the older scheme, then input tax credit also makes difference. And the agreement of sale, you are all aware that there is an agreement of sale. One of the objective of the Rera is to bring the standardization, bring the transparency, bring the responsibility, accountability, and uniform practices across the state and across the industry. So in view of that, the agreement of sale is also notified. If you read section 13 of the act, by virtue of section 13 of the act, which gives a power to the state authorities to notify the format of agreement of sale. Accordingly, section 8A, rule 8A is inserted in Karnataka with the notification of the agreement of sale. And if you go through this agreement of sale, it has covered all aspects which is required for the project. However, if it is a plotted, you should modify. If it is apartment, accordingly, appropriately modify that. But however, this agreement of sale should not travel, or it should not go beyond what is provided in the provisions of the act. Example, in case of a delay payment by LLP, you cannot say 24%. Earlier, we used to say 24%. In case of a delay by promoter, 5 rupees per square feet of delay, per month. That is not permitted. So what will be the delay compensation or delay interest which is provided in the act? The maximum is SBI MCLR plus 2%. To that extent, one can mention it. So it should not go beyond what is mentioned in the provisions of the act. Say an example, on cancellation, refund should be given within 45 days or 60 days, depends on the act, state to state. One should follow that. And there is a no escalation clause that should be met. And also in terms of registration of the sale agreement, that should be mandatory. Like this, the agreement of sale notified all the requirement under the act, and which should not be diluted, and the agreement clauses in the agreement should not be diluted, wherein it should not supersede the provisions of the act. And this is a document is required to be filed, required to be prepared and submitted along with the registration documents for the purpose of along with the application for grant of Rera registration. And you know that there are schedules to the project. This agreement, schedule A being the larger property, B being the specification, C being the price or the payment schedule, for city may be the specification, E may be the amenities or facilities, F may be the apartment or a plot which is selling to the customer. Please ensure these schedules are filled up properly. Do not leave it blank, because these schedules are also important for the authority to take a to pass your application for the purpose of registration. So this is about the today's topic, today's subject, which we have covered on the agreement of sale, year-end compliances, and the extension and modification required, and various compliances which may be registration, quarterly update, annual audit is a must, and the modification to the changes to the registration and agreement of sale. And also, if anybody is from Kerala, there is a notification which is not a notification, there is an announcement which is also published in the newspaper, where the promoters of the project, without taking any approval from any planning authority, they also have to come under Rera. However, we have to wait for the authority how they will issue the notification. That is what is required. And also, I remember AP also has given some recent circular or notification. Karthik, if you are here, can you share what is the recent notification of AP?
Sir, I think Karthik have not joined.
Karthik, I remember he's joined here. Karthik, are you there?
Yes, sir, I am there, sir.
Yeah, there is a notification which is issued on the 14th March. I think this is for the submission of the required document along with the format of certificate for completion of the project, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Actually, in Andhra Pradesh, recently they have issued for completion of the project. They have concentrated on association of allottees and structural stability certificate. And actually, and they have issued one format stating F6. If, for example, if there is any 10 flats in a unit, and if the promoter has sold, for example, 6, and remaining 4 he is keeping for his own. For that also they have introduced one affidavit. So like that, they have issued 3 affidavits stating structural stability certificate. The whole building, if it is with the complete specification, if the promoter has implemented, like that, we need to give one structural stability, and we need to give one association of allottees and these.
Completion certificate.
Completion. So while filing the quarterly update itself, we have to file these documents, and we need to close the project in AP.
Okay, for the in the interest of everybody, this is as latest as 14th March 2022. This is what our Karthik was mentioned about. And interesting to know that F6 is something like a structural stability certificate. Most of the authorities have started asking on completion of the building. The structural stability certificate should be issued by a structural engineer having visited, having inspected, having verified the structure of the building and has been built in accordance with the building sanctions, and also in terms of the structural standards of the project, of the structural standard, and which will withhold its strength over the period. And Form 7 is what is that Karthik mentioned in terms of unsold units. And
Sir,
also, yeah.
Form F7 in the sense which I mentioned earlier, if the promoter wants to keep his flats for his own, so
Okay.
they will be stating that particular flat, for example, if it is flat number 101, so in 101 flat number, I am not going to see it. For future also, I will be keeping for my own itself. Like that, we need to make an affidavit, and this affidavit has to be notarized by an advocate.
Okay, okay, good. And also, if you see that they wanted you to submit the entire bank statement from the beginning till date, and also all the sale deed of the project, all the sale deed of the units for the layout as well as this. This is the one thing which they have given the notification. So this is one of the latest update from Andhra Pradesh. Anything else you wanted to share?
Sir, apart from this, with respect to quarterly updates, actually they have extended the time period, sir. For every quarter, there will be around 15th of the month. Now they have extended the period to 22 days. And
Okay.
one more thing is in with respect to registration process, from this April onwards, they are changing some affidavits, and they are going to inserting more options like extra informations and all. They are going to implementing from this April, sir. And apart from that, recently 3 new members joined in AP Rera. Maybe they'll take from April or from next financial year, maybe.
So there is a new authority is in place in the Rera, AP Rera. Okay,
Yes,
good.
sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
They're introduced 3 new members, sir.
Okay, got it. Got it. Sure. Thank you, Karthik, for sharing what have been the happenings at AP Rera. Friends, with this we are concluding our presentation. And if you have any specific questions related to the presentation we have made today, or any other topic of your interest in relation to the Rera, if you have any specific question on Rera, you can post the questions either in chat box, or you can raise your hand, or you can switch on your audio or video and you can ask us. Okay.
Participants,
Yeah.
Participants, if you have any questions, please like put your questions into a chat box. We will unmute you and then you can ask your questions.
Okay, one of the question, friends, participants, you can post it chat for all. Also, you can need not to be me only. You can write that question to everybody, because that question is equally important to others. One of the question as written by a participant, sir, during the registration, authority is asking various questions, various documents, which looks very bulky, and promoters are very upset about so much of documents and the timelines they're taking to register the project. Friends, yes, from 13th October 2021, the new module has been implemented in Karnataka, wherein they have merged the post registration with the registration module itself. There is little more information required. And basis of our experience for few years, authority is not asking anything beyond what is required under the Act and the rules. If you read Section 4 of the Act and also rule for the under Karnataka Rera rules or any other state rules, the information which is asked by them is in accordance with the Act and the rules only. There is not single information or document which is they're asking more. Of course, we as a professionals or a promoters of the project should understand the old systems. We have to move to the new system of providing this information, because the authority is a regulatory authority to protect and balance both the industry, both the promoters and the allottees. And without this information, without these documents to be furnished with at the satisfaction of the authority, you don't get a registration. I know that quite number of applications are pending with the authority for the reason that non-furnishing the information or documents. Please furnish the documents and information. Generally, they'll clear within 30 days if the informations are provided properly. Yeah. Any other question?
Yes, another question is from Miss Meghna. She is asking, her question is for AP Rera team. Any guidelines available for updating the quarterly updates for AP Andhra Pradesh projects? So there is an exhaustive information sought, and most of the times the website doesn't cooperate for updates.
Karthik, you want to take up?
Yes, yes. Ma'am, can you repeat the question, ma'am?
Yeah. Miss Meghna is asking that any guidelines available for updating the quarterly updates for Andhra Pradesh projects. There's an exhaustive information sought, and most of the times website doesn't cooperate for the updates.
Ma'am, in AP Rera, actually, whenever, for example, now we are getting March quarter. So whenever there is a quarter from starting of the month to till 22nd only, there will be opening. There will be opening portal to update the quarterly updates. So apart from if the time is expired, we can't able to update the quarterly update. And recently there is a circular. If any promoter fails to file the quarter and the promoter requests to pay the 5% of the penalty amount. So in AP, if there is any particular quarter, within a time only we need to file, and if the time is expired, we can't able to file the quarter. So so that's the answer. So within time,
the information is, yes, information may be bulky. You have to upload and update all the documents related to the project. Yes, sale deed or something which are agreements you are entered, you have to upload all the documents against each units.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions from the participants?
One more question which is posted in the chat. Extension, other states are giving at speed or automatically, but Karnataka is delaying. Yes, it is the state to state it differ. Yes, Tamil Nadu, by making the payment of applicable fee for extension, they provide faster. Karnataka, of course, they want to hear before they issue the extension. It depends on the state to state and based on the practices of the authority. Any other questions, participants?
Any other questions, participants? You can raise your hand or you can put your questions into the chat box.
Okay, if there are no more questions, thank you so much for your time and your interest in knowing the subject. And we'll meet you all in the next month for the other topic or other subjects on Rera. Thank you so much. Over to Shweta.
Thank you, participants, and thank you, Vinay sir, Suhail sir, for contributing your valuable time and sharing your expert opinions on Rera mandates and the important compliances. As now, I would like to inform all our participants, like as Vinay sir just have mentioned, that they can share their opinions and their topics for our upcoming sessions. And you can mail us all your queries or any specific topics related to webinar to me. Our mail ID is rerapromo@reraconsultants.in. I'll just share the screen so you can note it down. So you can mail your topic on on Rera, any GST for real estate related topics. So twice in a month, we host these sessions. So you can mail your like questions, whatever, if you have the questions, any queries, or any topics related, if you want us to host on, so you can mail it to us, or you can reach out at sales@reraconsultants.in. All the informations are available at our website. Our website is www.reraconsultants.in.
So the email ID is not, now it is available.
Yeah. So I think that's it as of now. Thank you all. Thank you, sir. And thanks all for sharing your time. Have a wonderful evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you all.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Shweta.
Thank you, sir.